That's right, guys. HR protected a criminal act. Now, those of you that know me know that I'm not going to be complicit in this, nor will I just ignore it. So let's talk about what happened. Hi to my wisdom walkers and to new viewers. Thank you for visiting my channel. This is Life Lessons Learned. And for this one, lessons were learned all the way around by more than just me. Now, this happened during a time when I was working as a salesperson, and I've done many sales jobs throughout my life because I like people. I used to. I like customers, dealing with them, communicating with them, finding out what their needs, wants, and desires are, and then seeing if I have a product or a service that can meet those needs. Well, with this particular job, it was a very, very lucrative one. So as we made sales, we made very good money. And if we had months or weeks where we were doing bonuses on top of the sales that we had, that was even better. So at this particular time, I had made quite a few sales for the month, and your bonuses would come at the end of the month, which makes sense, I guess, if you're talking about accounting and that kind of thing. But of course, they had to also be sure that the sales, I don't know how to say, were valid and they weren't returned and things like that. So I was really excited because we would get our bonuses plus a percentage of whatever the bonus would be. So it's going to be a very lucrative month for me. Well, at the end of that month, we received our bonuses, and I had only about 50% of what mine should have been. And in my mind, I was thinking, oh, maybe they paid 50% for at the end of this month, and maybe the next month would catch the other. So because it was such a lucrative check, I didn't complain about it or anything. I just figured, I would get it at a later date. Well, about a week or so later, we all had a managers meeting, and the manager was saying, we all had a very good month and we all had gotten paid, and the bonuses were really nice. And I raised my hand and I was like, I got part of my bonus, but not all of it. And he was like, no, everyone was paid their bonuses. It was in your last check, da 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 da. And I was like, no, I know I didn't miscalculate that much by 50%, but we all can make errors. So I went back and looked at everything, and I was correct. I hadn't received my full bonus from the sales that I had, previously had done. So I went back to that manager, but this time just one on one with him. And I was like, I told you in the meeting that I didn't get everything. And I said, and here's the check, and here's the sales that I had. And you can see they don't coincide with each other. The math is not mathing. Okay. So he took a look at that, and then he said he would be right back. And he went to the accounting department. And in this particular job that I had, the accounting department shared the room with HR. So the HR employees would be right across from the people that were doing accounting and everything, which is fine. So he went to the person that calculates those bonuses, and he talked to her directly. And then he came back out and he was there for a while. Okay, I want to say a good 20 or 25 minutes. And in fact, they didn't stay in that room where everyone was at. They actually went outside, and he and she were talking and everything. And I could see, her holding her head down, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? So he came back and he said, there's been a problem. Yeah, that's the reason why I'm in your office, because we have a problem. Houston, we have a problem. And he said, your bonus money was allocated and it's been spent. And I'm like, it's been spent. I'm not sure what you mean. And he said, we'll just call this lady Jennifer, okay? Just so you all know that's not her name. So please don't get upset with the Jennifers that you know. And he said, this is what's going on, and I just want to see how you want to handle it. He said, Jennifer didn't think that you would notice, because your bonus was so big, that you would notice that some of it was missing, and she allocated those funds to herself. And I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, let me get this straight. She committed fraud and a felony and embezzled my money. So, okay. So I said, okay, so what do you want to do? This guy looks at me and says, well, like I said, the money was spent. Like I was going to say, okay, sorry. I was like, yeah, but it wasn't spent by me. So I need to get my bonuses. So this guy says, well, you have to understand she's been recently divorced. I said, so am I. Well, she has 3 kids. I said, so do I. He said, and she's not, really getting consistent child support. I said, neither am I. I want to hear how this story is going to end where I'm going to allow someone to steal my bonuses. That doesn't work. So then he said, hold on for a second. And then this time he goes to the HR side of the workplace and he's talking to the head person at HR. And that person looks out at me sitting in his office. And then she looks over at the person who had made the checks out. And then she's shaking her head and she's like, what are we going to do? And I don't know what she was saying because I don't read lips. So then he came back out to me and he said, okay, so this is what we want to know. First of all, we're going to make you whole. Yeah, you're going to do that. He said, but this is a case of fraud and we're asking if you're looking to press charges. And so I was like, no, I won't be pressing charges because you guys are going to pay me. So she really stole from your company, not from me. I said, so if the charges are going to be pressed, that would be a decision you guys would need to make. I'm not, that's not something I'm going to get into. I don't have an issue with what she's done as long as I get the funds that I'm supposed to get. So he then asked me if I wanted her to apologize to me. And I was like, not really. I mean, I'm not trying to humiliate someone or embarrass them or say, aha, I got you. Now you have to say you're sorry. I mean, that wasn't important to me. What was important to me is that I get the remaining 50% of the bonus that I had made from the month before. So, what I did with him at that point is I simply said, listen, I get it. I get that, people get desperate. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't mean I get people embezzling and fraud and stealing and all of that. I'm not putting a blanket on that. What I meant was I can see people feeling desperate, and sometimes desperate times does call for desperate measures. But when it comes to lying, defrauding, stealing, that's a bit more than just a desperate measure in my book, okay? But I told him, I said, no, none of that is necessary. I said, however, because it was a bonus that should have been paid a few weeks ago, last month, and I was counting on that, not that I was desperate for it, but I want my money. I said, I do not want to wait another month to get my bonus. I said, so please talk to someone in accounting or in HR and let them know that I plan on having my money by the end of this week. So whatever they have to do to make that happen is what I'm looking forward to. So he actually was really relieved and he asked me, are you sure you're not going to go, to the police? Or I'm like, that's not for me to do. And I don't want you to treat her any differently. And I was like, you don't want me to treat someone that stole money from me and my kids' mouths. You don't want me to treat them differently. Okay. Which I wouldn't anyway. Like I said, she didn't have to apologize or do any of that. Um, you know, Times can be hard for lots of us. And who knows what any of us would do in some situations, you know what I mean? So, no, it wasn't about that for me. And if she wasn't someone that I interacted with on a daily basis, because again, she was in accounting, I was in the sales staff. So it's not like we, you know, interacted a lot or anything like that. The only times that we would be if there was a discrepancy on the check or there was some overtime that was done and we didn't see it, that kind of thing. But I think it was a good month before she ever looked up at me again. She wouldn't look at me and wouldn't say anything, and I understood that as well. But HR actually, well, let me say the whole thing. So after I talked with him about making sure I would get my money that week and all of that, he sent me to HR, and HR wanted to meet in a separate room because, again, they were right there with the accounting staff. And so she was right there. And they thanked me for not looking to press charges and, being really, I guess you could say, mature about it and forgiving. Um, and I assured them there would be no hard feelings or anything like that. But this tale I wanted to say because a lot of people, and I don't know what different situations are for some of you out there, but some people would have, when he said when the money was spent, they would have been like, oh, okay. We need to be able to use our voice to speak up on our own behalf and to stand our ground for things in this matter. So I wasn't really sure what he even meant when he said, well, the money's been spent. I'm like, it wasn't spent by me. So let's start this whole story over again. But don't be afraid when you know that you're right and you know that you've been wronged. You really have to take the courage to stand up for yourself, speak up for yourself, and make sure that things are right with you. Now, everything, worked out for me in that situation, and I didn't I continued to work there and she continued to work there. But for me, and this is just me talking at this point, well, of course, it's only me talking. Who else would be talking? I would be surprised if they would allow her to continue to work in that capacity because let's just be honest, how do we know she wasn't skimming off folks the whole time? A little here, a little there. Most companies are not looking to have someone working in accounting that they have proven to have committed fraud or used other people's funds and made it out to themselves. But anyway, that's not my clowns, not my circus. But I wanted to share that with everyone as one of the experiences that I've had in my earlier years in life, and how important it is for us to really, you know, be there for ourselves. That's what I have. And for my wisdom walkers, thank you for always continuing to check out my channel. For new viewers, I'm hoping that you would consider subscribing if you like this video and begin to, like I said, be your own advocate. I will talk to you guys later and share your comments below. Let me know some difficult or challenging situations you may have found yourself in with either HR or a manager or a supervisor, someone that, for whatever reason, seemed to side with the other party instead of doing the right thing. And what was your outcome for any of those types of experiences? I'll see you later. Bye bye.